Hello everyone, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Today, we will explore one of the most compelling and perplexing political phenomena in the world today, the rise of the American MAGA New Right. We often see fragmented information in the news, tariff wars, anti-awakening movements, Supreme Court rulings, and even clashes on Capitol Hill. However, if we only look at these fragments, we will never understand the deeper logic behind them. Please look at us. First slide, Furious Minds, a systems anatomy of the New Right coalition. Today, instead of using traditional political science approaches, we will borrow metaphors from biology and systems anatomy. As Dr. Laura Field, a political theorist at George Washington University in Washington, D.C., points out in her book, Time's Furious Minds, the MAGA movement is far more than just an ignorant populist outburst. It is fueled by a highly intellectual alliance of intellectuals, many of whom hold doctoral degrees. This alliance is like a complex organism with its skeleton, cells, metabolic system, and genetic code. Over the next 15 to 20 minutes, we will dissect this political organism layer by layer to see how it thinks, how it operates, and where it will lead America. Before dissecting this new entity, we need to look at what its ancestor looked like. On the left, you see Reaganism or Fusionism, which dominated American conservatives from 1980 to 2012. It was like a three-legged stool. The first leg was neoliberal economics, advocating free markets and tax cuts. The second leg was social traditionalism. And the third leg was anti-communism and liberal internationalism. For decades, the American right wing sat firmly on this stool. But in 2016, a mutation occurred. The image on the right illustrates the mutated Trumpism or New Right. The stool now has four legs, and the material has completely changed. As defined by Michael Anton of the Claremont Institute, the New Right's formula has become economic nationalism, closed or secure borders, America First diplomatic isolationism, and a more radical anti-woke social conservatism. Ladies and gentlemen, please know the core of this change. The consensus of fusionism has been completely abandoned. Neoliberal economics has been replaced by nationalism. Internationalism has been replaced by isolationism. This is not just a change in policy, but an evolution and mutation of the entire species. So, what makes up the internal brain of this new organism? Let's see. Page 3, Figure 2, Taxonomy of the Intellectual Coalition. In this diagram, we divide this intellectual alliance into four main nodes. Although these four factions have completely different ultimate goals, telos, and often experience fierce internal conflicts, they form a remarkable symbiotic relationship. They are bound together by a powerful force, the anti-liberal consensus. Next, we will examine each of these four organs with a magnifying glass. Let's take a look first. Page 4. Node A. The Claremonters, Structural Defense. Key figures include Michael Anton, John Eastman, who drafted the memorandum to overturn the 2020 election, and Larry Oren of Hillsdale College. They can be called founding fanatics. What is their operating mechanism? In their view, the original constitutional order of the United States has been usurped by a vast, unelected administrative state and bureaucracy. Therefore, their goal is to strip or dismantle this administrative state. A famous Clementine slogan is knowing what time it is. This is a doomsday rhetoric imbued with a sense of existential crisis. In 2016, Michael Anton wrote a famous article, The Flight 93 Election, comparing the United States to a hijacked plane and urging people to rush into the cockpit or we're all dead. This intense sense of crisis provided theoretical support for many subsequent anti-establishment and even revolutionary movements. Next is page 5, Node B, the post-liberals, moral integration. This group is a completely different story. Key figures include conservative Catholic intellectuals such as Patrick Denny of Notre Dame and Adrian Vermeule of Harvard. If the Claremonters wanted to destroy the administrative state, then the post-liberals wanted to seize and control the state apparatus. Their core theory is common good constitutionalism. They believe that liberalism, by overemphasizing individual freedom, has led to a general moral decline and a breakdown of social bonds. Therefore, law should not be interpreted literally originalism, but should be used to enforce moral outcomes and even restore traditional religious and social order. This is akin to reprogramming the state apparatus, unifying individual will into a grander spiritual and moral goal. Elected Vice President J.D. Vance is ideologically very close to this faction. Let's move to page 6. Node. National Conservatives, Cellular Defense. This is the largest tent of organizations within the New Right, represented by figures such as Yoram Hazony and Senator Josh Hawley. If the nation is viewed as a cell, then the core dogma of national conservatism is to establish hard borders to defend against the external viruses of globalization, immigration, and NGOs. In his 2018 book, Hazony explicitly stated the nation-state is the only vehicle for human prosperity. They reject universalism and the international legal system, recognizing only rights based on specific ethnic groups. More noteworthy is their pursuit of internal homogeneity. They believe that cultural, linguistic, and religious diversity, especially the Christian tradition within a nation, is not an advantage, but rather a weakness. They advocate for the re-establishment of a homogenized society dominated by Christianity and traditional American culture. Then we touch on the most peripheral, yet most destructive part. Page 7, Node D, the hard right vitalist mutation. This is a group lurking in the shadows of the internet, teeming with podcasts and anonymous forums. Key figures include the pseudonym Bronze Age Pervert, BAP, Curtis Yarvin, and Nick Fuentes. They are the virus of this ecosystem. They are masters of meme warfare, using humor, irony, and extremely vulgar language to smuggle authoritarian and racist ideologies. A frequently used term in their vocabulary is the longhouse. They use this word to denigrate modern society, arguing that the world is ruled by an overemphasis on security, femininity, and bureaucracy, a matriarchal value system. In retaliation, they promote vitalism, the worship of strength, youth, classical masculinity, and aesthetics, even openly embracing racism and misogyny. While seemingly marginalized, this group has exerted a powerful pull on young men and successfully infiltrated extreme ideologies into mainstream political discourse. We've now examined the brain structure of this creature. So how does it maintain its energy metabolism? Let's take a look. Page 8. The metabolic substrate, economics. This is the very foundation of the New Right. We must thank Oren and his American Compass organization for completely overturning the conservative economic narrative. In the past neoliberal cycle, the sole objective of the economy was to maximize GDP and boost consumption. This model pursued cheap labor and maximized corporate profits, resulting in the hollowing out of American industry, the despair of the working class, and the collapse of communities. Oren proposed a new principle, the working hypothesis. He argued that humans are not only consumers, but also producers. Production precedes consumption. The market is merely a tool, not God. The ultimate goal of economic policy must be to create a labor market where workers can support strong families and communities. Therefore, they advocate for embracing tariffs, implementing industrial policies, providing per-child tax credits, and even supporting the establishment of labor organizations that are more focused on workers' interests. This represents a profound transformation that re-embeds economics within social and family ethics. Page 9. Signaling pathways, binding agents. In this regard, we must answer a thorny question. What brings devout Catholic scholars together with extremists who promote heresy or even atheistic biophilia online? The diagram illustrates three main binding affinities. The first is intellectualized misogyny. As Professor Elizabeth Anker of George Washington University points out, the New Right is not merely about traditional male chauvinism. They view women as agents of the modern safe state and the elite, believing that the rise of women has disrupted traditional power structures in society. Secondly, anti-elitism. Regardless of their faction, they all view the current ruling class, the so-called managerial elite or the cathedral, as the culprits behind the exploitation of the working class and ordinary people. Thirdly, the friend-enemy distinction. Deeply influenced by the German political philosopher Carl Schmitt, they believe that the essence of politics is not compromise and peace, but rather drawing clear lines between friends and enemies. This strong emotional resonance became a powerful glue that bridged factional differences. So, what is the root cause of all this? Let's take a look. Page 10. Root cause analysis. The liberalism traps. Political philosopher Patrick Deneen, in his magnum opus, Why Liberalism Failed, offers the most profound philosophical diagnosis. Liberalism failed not because it encountered external threats, but because it was too successful. Let's examine this suffocating cycle. The core goal of liberalism is to dissolve the individual from informal norms such as tradition, family, and religion. This leads to atomization, where individuals become isolated and alienated. When individuals lose the protection of their communities and become isolated, they instinctively seek order and security externally. Who can provide this security? Only the ever-expanding state apparatus. Thus, state power further erodes local self-governing institutions, replacing traditional mutual aid networks and leading to further atomization. Individualism and nationalism are not opposites, but rather twins expanding in tandem. This unsustainable cycle of statist individualism is the root cause of the deep divisions in American society today and the sense of powerlessness among the people. In page 11, the genetic code, the three hearts, we reveal the most fundamental genetic code of far-right mutation through historian Quinn Slobodian's book, Hayek's Illegitimate Son. This is a kind of bio-realism disguised as science. It consists of three DNA strands, hard borders protecting the so-called homogeneous national economy, ethnostate, ethno-economy. Capital can move freely, but certain types of people must be kept out. Hard money. This is a weapon against inflation and modern welfare democracy. Gold bugs, represented by Peter Beringer, are obsessed with gold or Bitcoin. They believe that fiat currencies deviating from the gold standard are the root of national corruption and excessive welfare, and they are constantly preparing for a doomsday economic collapse. Hardwired culture, IQ racism. Using theories by Charles Murray and others, this approach attributes IQ and cultural differences to genes. The logic behind this is chilling. If inequality between people and between races is an innate biological difference, then any social welfare program aimed at achieving equality is futile, and society is inherently hierarchical. Hierarchy is natural. Finally, let's get down to reality. Please see page 12, Phenotypic Expression, From Theory to Governance. All the philosophical, economic, and extreme ideologies discussed earlier are not mere ivory tower rhetoric. With a combination of intellectuals, billionaires, tech moguls, and a grassroots populist base, this system is becoming a real governing blueprint. Their strategies march through the institutions. Its most concentrated manifestation is the well-known Project 2025 Personnel Equals Policy, attempting to replace the existing civil service with people completely loyal to the new right-wing ideology. They envision a post-constitutional governance, and some have even proposed the concept of the Red Caesar, suggesting the need for a strongman to dismantle the existing corrupt system and establish a new order. As Christopher Rufo, a new right activist, proclaimed, Actors must be able to confidently say, we will lead these institutions, and we will lead them in accordance with our values. This is no longer blind anger, but a highly coherent and aggressive ideological project. Friends, this has been a systematic dissection of the MAGA New Right, from deconstructing the existing administrative state to using state power to achieve moral integration, from reshaping production-centric economics to appealing to biology to justify racial and social inequality. This is not only a rebellion against 20th century neoliberalism, but also a fundamental challenge to the entire modern democratic system. Regardless of our political stance, only by penetrating the surface noise and seeing through the underlying anatomy, metabolic mechanisms, and the genetic code of this ideological alliance can we truly understand what is happening in this era and what may come tomorrow. Thank you for listening. I hope this anatomical journey has brought you new insights